Hi, my name is Casey Armitage. I have been an elected precinct delegate since 2016, and I have been an incredibly involved and active volunteer ever since then. I am currently seeking election at the upcoming February state convention, which will be held in Lansing on February 17th and 18th. And at the state convention on Friday the 17th, we will have our district caucus to elect our new district executive committees. And we will have Saturday's convention for electing the new state party leadership, such as chair, co chair, and I think it's 6 vice chair positions. Um, with that said, while I've been talking to delegates throughout the district, the most common topic that has been brought to my attention was the August state convention and whether or not delegates were properly elevated. Um, and I'd like to take a minute to talk about this and to inform everybody of what took place and how the delegates were elevated and how it was proper. So, for starters, on that Saturday, um, it should be very well noted that a convention isn't official and the business of the convention doesn't move forward until after the Credentials Committee and Rules Committee reports have been accepted. As you recall, we did not accept the Credentials Committee report or the Rules Committee report because we had a motion on the floor to amend the Credentials Committee report. I have been told that a few people were upset that I had told our delegates at that point in time that if we didn't go forward with approving the Credentials Committee report, there would be no convention. And we wouldn't be able to take a vote on our lieutenant governor candidate, and we wouldn't have a lieutenant governor candidate. So I was telling everybody that we needed to go forward with the Credentials Committee report. And that was based on the rules at that time. Because as stated in the rules of the convention, it is only the Credentials Committee that has the authority to amend the Credentials Committee report. So therefore, the body of the convention wasn't supposed to be amending the report. They were only supposed to be accepting or denying it. Given that the will of the majority of the body of the convention wanted this amendment to take place, there were accommodations made and changes to the rules so that the Credentials Committee report would be amended to change the 199 Macomb County delegates that were on the original Credentials Committee report to reflect a different set of 199 delegates for Macomb County. Until we accepted that Credentials Committee report and the Rules Committee report, we did not officially have credentialed delegates or credentialed alternates. Therefore, I could not elevate anybody because there was nothing to elevate. There was no credentialed delegates or alternates. These initial votes, as the convention is called to order, again, are taken by a voice vote of the body of the convention. Had I elevated at this time in the convention, the elevation would have occurred amongst the delegates that were eventually removed. So I would have elevated delegates that then were found to not be credentialed. And I don't think that that would have changed anything or solved anything that anybody has an issue with at this time. After the delegates had been replaced and we moved forward, this was when we decided that we would be voting by paper ballot. Prior to being present at the state convention that day in August, everything was going to be conducted by a voice vote. but it was the will of the body again that the vote take place on a paper ballot. Had we not used a paper ballot, there would have been no elevation at all at the August State Convention. It was the rule of the MIGOP and convention that there's no elevation for voice votes. I did fight against this, and I said that there must be some sort of system that we could put in place to elevate for a voice vote of the lieutenant governor. I did not want our newly elected delegates, especially that are already disenfranchised in this convention, to be even further disenfranchised by going through everything you need to go through to become an alternate to convention, knowing that there was a vacancy on the floor for you to have participated in the vote and be denied that opportunity. So I did fight against not elevating for voice votes, but I lost. So given that we did vote by paper ballots, I was able to elevate our alternates at the appropriate time, which happens at the voting queue. So in Rule 12 that was brought to my attention of the convention rules, it's Rule 12 of the August State Convention rules. It states in there, and I'm going to read it verbatim real quick. In order to increase participation at the state convention, the elevation of alternates to delegates shall be non-discretionary, automatic, and consistently applied process. At all times during the state convention, alternates shall be automatically elevated to delegates. The district chairs and other convention officers have the authority to elevate alternates. Any challenges to the elevation of alternates shall be determined by the Credentials Committee. With that said, I would like to point out that all of the alternates that were elevated in a non-discretionary matter. They were elevated automatically, and they were elevated in a consistently applied process, which takes place at the voting queue. When it speaks of at all times during the state convention, the alternate shall be automatically elevated to delegates. I find this to be very poorly written. And the reason being is because it is impossible to accurately and transparently elevate delegates at all times. And what I mean by that is, picture our convention. I am one person. Our delegation is the largest in the state. In August, we had 245 delegates on the floor and 245 delegates in the alternate section. And since we've brought up the alternate section, I will put in a plug here that yes, I am very aware that the configuration of the floor and the placement of our alternates was absolutely insane. And it was, I hated it. I spoke against it. I requested that they make a change, but they weren't able to accommodate making a change at the last minute. I definitely got my steps in that day, going from one end of the convention hall to the very opposite far corner of our voting queue. And I did the best I could do with the cards that we were dealt that day. With that said, if we were to elevate automatically and freely and at all times, that would mean that we are elevating as delegates come and go from the floor. So when a delegate uses the restroom, when a delegate gets concessions, when a delegate would need to step out to take a phone call or just to get some fresh air, I would have to, one, have a way to take a incredibly accurate roll call attendance of every delegate present on the floor. And then I would have to stand and a location that is one way in and one way out for our delegates. And I would have to keep track of who leaves the floor and who is alternate 1 and 2, and so on and so forth. And then when the delegate returns to the floor, I would have to locate alternate 1, and I would have to unelevate them and send them back to the alternate section. This is impractical. You would have no idea of how to keep track of if a district chair were elevating properly or if they were breaking the rules. Also, there's not enough time, there's not enough people. It's too much chaos to be able to elevate that way. And elevation is done for the business of voting. The purpose of elevation is to vote with a full delegation. Elevating an alternate so that they can be on the convention floor, um, without voting taking place, um, it's not feasible. Um, with that said, let's move forward. Um, the How we elevate in District 9 and how I did it at the April convention and I did it the exact same way at the August convention is I prefer that we vote by county. I don't know how many of you heard my request to line up to vote by county. We typically try to vote by county alphabetical order. So we start with Huron and move on to Lapeer and then Macomb and so on and so forth. The reason is because if Huron County all lines up to vote and we are checking them in on physical paper as they vote, I know very accurately exactly which Huron County delegates voted, and I know which Huron County delegates are absent. So now I know how many vacancies there are for the Huron County delegation, and I can go back to our alternates and I can elevate the correct, in sequenced order, alternate 1, 2, 3, to fill those vacancies for Huron. And we can work through this one county at a time as we go through. When we vote and all 7 counties are mixed together, I have to wait for all 7 counties to finish voting before I know where the vacancies are of the delegates of each county, and I can go start the elevation process, which is part of what took us so long at the August convention, because we were less organized by county than we were at the April convention. Again, there was quite a bit more chaos happening at the August convention than April, so I'm not surprised by that. Also, the distance that I had to travel between the voting queue and the alternates, it created its own challenges and timing. But anyways, so if I am able to accurately, completely record each delegate's vote, not their individual vote, but the fact that they voted, then I know very specifically who voted and who needs to be elevated. Just in case, because I didn't say it yet, and maybe you don't know, but elevation in the district has to occur county for county. I think I may have mentioned it, but just in case I didn't, if I have a delegate that is absent from Oakland County, I have to elevate an alternate from Oakland County. I cannot elevate an alternate from Sanilac County in order to fill a vacancy in Macomb County. So it has to be done county by county. A few other things that I'd like to mention in regards to the day's happenings and goings and how things went on the floor. I did hear from some people that they thought that I wasn't present on the floor. Again, it's a sea of people. We have thousands of delegates and alternates and guests and media in one room at one time. Our delegation alone was just under 500 delegates, plus or minus the 199 other delegates that came into play. I had to go to the stage and I had to go backstage A lot of the time, especially when we were working through the first couple votes on the Rules and Credentials Committee, as most of you noticed yourselves, we couldn't really hear on the speaker system. And I needed to find out what was going on and what the process and procedure was and how to move forward. It was very frustrating. There was a lot of things that I was told, and then they changed at the last minute. Like I had tellers for District 9 that I picked ahead of time. And when we counted the delegates for the Macomb delegates to be replaced, um, the tellers sent to me were randomly chosen by the state party, and I didn't know why we had another set of tellers. And there was a lot of decisions that had to be made on the fly of how to do it so it was open and transparent and fair. In that particular circumstance, we chose to have both sets of tellers count and then compare their number to make sure that we got the same number from both sets of tellers, which we ultimately did. And we felt much more confident in our count that way, which was great. Um, I was very present on the floor, but again, please remember it is a very large space. I did have to go backstage and up to the stage. I also did my best to communicate with our alternates throughout the day, and I had to go all the way to that far corner, and then our delegates were in the middle, and then our voting queue was all the way in the opposite corner. So it was a lot of walking around and getting my steps in that day. Um, what else did I want to mention? So there was a couple other things that day. For one, I am very dedicated to the Republican Party and to our cause and to our district. I always have been. I always will be. I am not. I don't shy away from making a sacrifice to do what needs to be done for the party. And that the evening before state convention, that Friday evening, I was supposed to have a hotel room. I was told that my hotel room was covered. I just needed to show up and check in. Well, when I got there, it turns out that my room was not reserved and I couldn't check in, and there was no available rooms in the surrounding Lansing area. And after several hours and the evening hours ticking by of trying to find myself a hotel room, Adam and I actually ended up spending the night in our car. We went to a truck stop off of a freeway exit just outside of Lansing, and we slept in our car that night. That is how dedicated I am to doing what needs to be done. I got a few hours of sleep at the truck stop. I showed up at the Lansing Center hours ahead. The first thing I did was went to the room that we were supposed to have for the district in the morning to use as a hospitality space. And I found that the room wasn't ready or available. There was nothing in the room. It was dark. I had to spend the next, I don't know, hour and a half trying to make sure that we had use of the room, that we could get the lights turned on in the room, and to get the coffee and water service that we had ordered um, delivered and available for the delegates to have their coffee and water in the morning. Speaking of which, pot number 3 today. So after I got the room situated, it was time for the district chair meeting. And I met up with all the district chairs on the convention floor, and we reviewed everything for the day, and we got our chair books and all of that. And then I got a phone call, and it was one of our delegates. Well, it was a delegate that's not from our county, but also happens to sit with me on the board of Michigan Open Carry. And he was being harassed for open carry in the Lansing Center. Our Sergeant of Arms, Mr. Barry, had stopped him and had proclaimed that open carry was prohibited in the Lansing Center. After being persistent and insisting that Mr. Berry was misinformed, he did obtain a printed copy of the rules for carrying at the Lansing Center. He admitted that he was wrong. He apologized for delaying my friend and fellow delegate, and we moved on with the day. But it was another issue that I addressed and stood for our Second Amendment rights there on the convention floor. Adam and I have always carried at convention. We intend to always carry at convention. There's no reason that the Republican pro gun party should be conducting business in gun free zones. And any venues that we have been using that are PFZs, really, we need to stop making contracts with them, is my belief. Um, but getting back on topic, so that was how my morning started. And then the convention started, and I'll tell you what, I was blindsided, as many other people I'm sure were. I had no idea that there was an organized movement to make change on the convention floor of the Credentials Committee. Um, I had no idea what was coming, and I was doing the very best that I could to listen, to take instruction, and to inform the delegation of what was happening and what was going on. Um, what else did I want to talk about? In the afternoon, because of the very long delay that we had, the unity party that I had planned for District 9 in the afternoon had to be canceled. So amidst all of the chaos, I had to communicate with the restaurant across the street. I had to make them understand that we couldn't possibly keep our time there. They were not able to accommodate a later time. They did hold the PAC 9 GOP liable for all of the perishable foods that we ordered. So we had to get them a check for $550 roughly, to cover the perishable foods. And I had to organize somebody to go over there and get it. We did get those foods into our District 9 hospitality room. And I hope that you were able to get a nibble. But there was nobody to guard it because we were all still on the convention floor. So, as you remember, we were all very hungry and thirsty. So, I'm not sure which delegates got into our perishable vegetable trays and such, but I'm sure that it all went to hungry bellies that needed it. Um, but it was disappointing that we didn't get to go through with our unity meet and greet. I was very excited to be able to do something for our delegates. I've attended a lot of conventions, and other than the candidates hosting their meet and greets, their parties, there usually isn't a whole lot of thanks and gratitude and celebration of the delegates and everything that we sacrifice and we do to make it to Lansing or Grand Rapids or wherever the convention is. The gas, the time, the hotel costs, the food expenses, concessions prices, all of the things that go into being present at convention. It's a lot. And I really wanted to thank everybody um, for doing that and showing up and upholding your duties as a delegate. And that's why instead of hosting something for the candidates, I asked all of the candidates to chip in to host an event for you. And they were all very happy to do so, especially after pointing out all of the hard work that the delegates do for them throughout the year and all of the expense that the delegates incur to keep doing what we do. So thank you. Even though we didn't get to have the unity party, know that I see you, I know what it takes, and I appreciate each and every one of you. Um, what else did I have? I guess, yes, we did cover rule number 12. Um, I think it's also worth noting the stresses in the convention floor. One more that I just would like to bring to light. I've never seen the media leave the media platform. And at the August State Convention, I had cameras literally in my face. They were right in my face as I was trying to communicate with our delegation. And I'm not an on camera person. I don't even really like to do recordings like this, but it was definitely raised the anxieties when you knew you had the media right there. Um, what else? With all of this said, and with me explaining that these are the rules when we walked into convention, and then this is what happened, and the rules changed. I want all of you to know and to think about a little bit how anything can happen at a convention. 2022 has been a year of unique conventions, both county and state. And we all need to recognize that the body of a convention is a very powerful force and anything can happen. And this is why we are intimidated by potentially having a convention of states, because at the convention of states, anything can happen. They keep saying that this is what the agenda will be and this is what will be discussed. But as we've seen, we came into this convention with one set of rules. And then when the convention was completed, it was different rules and even different delegates. So keep that in mind, and remember to be diligent in your learning and your knowledge. I am always available. I am more than happy to discuss this or any part of this or any other topic that you would like to discuss with me ahead of our elections for the district executive committee. I very much would appreciate your support. I have been working towards um, improving the what used to be the current 10th district, and I really want to see big changes going forward into the new ninth congressional district. We are the biggest, largest, most conservative district in the state of Michigan. And not only do I want to keep it that way, but I want us to set the example for the rest of the state going forward. I want to protect our northern rural counties. I want to make sure that each one of you have a voice on our committee as well as the state committee. And I want to put the infrastructure back into the party that has been missing, that will make us effective and productive. I have a lot of big plans and I hope you'd like to hear more about them. And I look forward to hearing from each one of you and to seeing you at our future conventions. God bless. Merry Christmas. Have a great day. I will talk to you all soon. Thanks. Bye bye.